I am so glad this year is almost over. Anyway, Book Nerd Luna coming back at you with another video, and I thought that I would list the top 25 books that I read this year. Not to be confused with 25 five stars, because I've come to realize that some of my favorite reads this year weren't actually 5 stars. They had little things about them that maybe knocked them down half a star to a 4, but a 4 or 4.5 is still really good. And a lot of these books I have been thinking about a lot, and honestly, probably on a reread, might even wind up being 5 stars. But I'm going to start at number 25, kind of quickly go through the first 15 entries, and then maybe go a little bit more in depth on my top 10. Most of these books I do not own. I actually read majority of my stuff from the library. So when I own the book, I'll show it up. Otherwise, you'll find them probably on screen somewhere here, like right here. Anyway, I'm going to get started so I don't take up too much of your time and start with number 25, which is Aristotle and Dante Discover the Universe. And this one I read as part of the Buzzword Reading channel. If you follow Books and La La Kayla, you know what I'm talking about. But I read it for one of the prompts for this summer, and I wound up liking it a lot more than I thought I would, because I think I mentioned in my last video, I'm mostly a horror reader, and this isn't horror. This is more like contemporary fiction. And yeah, I really like that one. Number 24, Tomi or Tomie. I'll be honest, I'm still not entirely sure how to pronounce it, but by Junji Ito. And honestly, it's just a bad bitch being a bad bitch, and literally nothing can keep her down. 23, a recent read, Sour Candy. This one is a cosmic horror with a child-free main character that's also a man, so those are things you don't usually see in a book at the same time. Number 22, Woman Eating. This one, while labeled a horror, I think the reason it didn't quite hit right for me is it didn't, at least to me, it didn't read like a horror. It read more like a contemporary female rage lit fic with some horror elements, aka vampires. But nothing about this tickled that horror bone, I guess you could say I have. So, number 21, another relatively recent read, Blood Cruise. This one is a translated work, I believe, by a Swedish author. I am blanking on his name right now. I don't have it right in front of me. But he has been compared, like this book has been compared to Stephen King and the other Swedish author who wrote the Let the Right One In. I know his name. I cannot pronounce most of it. I know his first name is John. And while I love a lot of Stephen King's work, and I really like Let the Right One In, and I like this one, it fell a little bit short of those lofty comparisons. Like, it was good, little too much buildup. I get where it was going. It started a lot sooner than some horror novels, but it definitely felt like it was mimicking a style that wasn't inherently this author's. I'm going to leave it at that. Number 20, I Who Have Never Known Men. Short, kind of post-apocalyptic. Please don't make fun of me. I have speech problems. Post-apocalyptic novel about essentially a group of women kept in a bunker for like 10 years. And there's one girl in there who the only time she's ever seen men were the guards guarding them. And then something happens and they all get out. And essentially it's a group of like 40 women living their lives without men at all. Some people might consider that a dream. All right, also another very recent read, number 19, is The Ruins. I actually finished that one today, and it is in my top 25 of this year because I've heard it hyped up. Even my husband, who's not a big horror reader, liked this book. Like, I was able to talk to him about it over breakfast this morning. And yeah, it's definitely, it's planty horror, I'll give you that. It's a very eco horror. You can kind of tell from the cover. But yeah, I just wanted to shake these people, but while simultaneously feeling extraordinarily bad for them because, to be honest, none of them deserve what happened to them in this book. Ugh. All right, number 18, My Darling Dreadful Thing. This one is queer, which I like. It focuses on women and their rage at how they're treated in relationships, not even by just men, but just by other women who either center men or who have their own agenda. And honestly, it ends in a way that made me really sad. But the horror is there. It is very much there. Number 17, Murder Your Employer. Another, from what I can remember, buzzword pick. And this one was actually pretty funny. It's not a horror, but it's like the concept of you going to college to learn how to kill people, with the kind of catch being, if you don't kill them, the school kills you. And it's just hijinks. It's got like 3 different characters. Really fun read. Give it a shot. Number 16, The Conjurer's Wife. This is actually just a short story, so I'm really not going to get into it because it's a very quick listen. I listened to it on audio, but even if you're just physically reading, it'd be really quick. But it's a really good story about essentially a woman breaking free of a relationship that is not serving her anymore. Let's see, number 15, Love in the Time of Serial Killers. Another one that it's more funny. It's honestly like another contemporary fiction because even though it mentions serial killers, it's more the main character is just obsessed with serial killers and really paranoid about like becoming the victim of a serial killer. And she's honestly very obsessive. But I thought the romance in it was really cute, and it's not very often that I get main characters that body types are similar to mine. And that's another reason I think I really love this book is because the main character was fat like I am. And that's okay. Fat's not a dirty word, but it'd be nice to see more positive representations of that. Number 14, You Weren't Meant to Be Human. I've seen this one all over BookTube. Y'all know what this one's about. It's body horror. It's about trans lived experience. It's about bodily autonomy. It's super gross, involves a lot of bugs and death and gore and blood. And one of the most horrific scenes, quite frankly, I have ever read at the end. You should read it. 13, Tell Me I'm Worthless. Oh boy, this one, honestly, I could probably write like a graduate level thesis on this book because it explores so many themes about like queer lived experiences, but it really focuses on the prejudices and bigotry and hatred that can exist within marginalized communities, especially on the backdrop of like a white Christian nationalist ideal system, especially like with broadly throughout like a country. It's set in England. It's about a trans woman named Alice and a Jewish woman named Isla. And yeah, neither of them are great people, but you still find yourself rooting for them in the end because you realize they're not the enemy. Number 12, Bat Eater. This is one of those books that genuinely scared me at one point, and I don't scare very easily, especially not when reading, because, again, I read a lot of horror. It's very hard to get under my skin. But when you're sitting in a house by yourself in the middle of the night, reading about freaking ghosts coming out of shadows, and you're staring at your dark hallway and think you keep seeing stuff moving, it's gonna freak you out. But other than that, it's really about the horrors of racism, and of course it's set during the pandemic, so keep that in mind when or if you decide to read this. I know it's also been all over like BookTube, Book Talk, so. Another surprise for me, The Unmaking of June Farrow. Again, not a horror. It's, I believe, another one I read for a buzzword challenge for this past year, and it's a time travel book. It's like, kind of, like, it is a time travel book, but it's not really about the time travel. The time travel is the vehicle for it's like part time travel, part murder mystery, part like woman in her 30s, I think, finding herself. And to be honest, it touched me. It really touched me. And if you like stories with a little bit of mystery, a little bit of drama that aren't too heavy and arguably have a happy ending, give this one a try. And now we are getting into my top 10 reads of 2025. My number 10 book, The Virgin Suicides, which is a very uncomfortable novel to read. I'm going to be, real with you on that. It's about 5 teen girls who take their own lives, ultimately, in the end. And it can be really uncomfortable in some ways because this book isn't told through like a feminist lens. It isn't told by the girls themselves. It's recollections of a grown man from when he himself was a child and was neighbors with this girl. And it's kind of like a mishmash of his recollections and then him getting stories from his friends for things they can remember. But like, from the beginning what this book is about, because like the very first thing that's talked about is the death of the youngest sister, which is kind of what, just is the catalyst for everything that happens, with the other sisters just becoming more isolated, more, trapped within their home because their family's very religious. There's obviously very patriarchal things going on, like the parents trying to keep the girls from, like talking to boys and doing things that go against their religion. But it's so sad because you never really know what these girls are thinking. Everything you experience about them is like second or even third hand because you're getting these through the recollections of a grown man from when he was a child, observing what happened to these girls and the kind of melancholy that him and his friends feel knowing that this happened to some of their neighbors and their peers, but also like just this kind of longing, because while these girls, you could tell, were kind of outsiders and they weren't always included in everything, it's not because necessarily people wanted to ostracize them. It's just their family dynamics led to them being hard to approach, hard to be friends with, because you don't want like your friend's parents always up your butt. And it just gets sadder and sadder watching this family fall apart after the first death. And then the culmination of what happens in the end. Because you would go into this, like, especially if like, all these girls are dead, but you don't realize just how horrific what happened was. Because one death by suicide is tragic. 5 is beyond anything you can even imagine. And I'm trying to avoid a lot of spoilers. It's not that big of a spoiler that all of the girls are dead, because that's kind of one of the main themes of the book, even if you don't really find out. But it's just how the rest of them went is what is so sad. And I know that this is like through the lens of a teenage boy. It's not as horny as you would think it would be, which I am grateful for. Like, obviously the boys like talk about how much they like the girls and they'd like to be with them, but it's more just observations of an outsider kind of viewing a family that is literally falling apart at the seams. And it explores so many themes of autonomy and growing up, and just leaves you imagining what these Lisbon sisters could have accomplished if they had given themselves a chance. Because, like, they were so close to freedom, but you realize they had been conditioned to think they were never going to be free. And I think that's ultimately what this book boils down to. Number 9, The Troop by Nick Cutter. Ooh, I know this is a big one. This one is very violent, and it's outside of my realm of what I usually read, because like normally I really like female main characters, female leads, more like feminist lens, female gaze, all that. But this book is all about a group of preteen / young teenage boys. But it is horrific. Like, if parasites and bugs bother you, if body horror bothers you, if self-harm bothers you, do not read this book. Also, I'm even going to say this, if psychopathic children bother you, do not read this, because this book has all of that. And it's not just body horror and bugs and all that. It's survival horror. It's isolation horror. It's claustrophobic because, yeah, they're on an island, but it's a tiny island. It's like one of those tiny islands. Like, it's somewhere, I think, off the coast of, like right off the coast of like Maine or Canada, I think. Like just one of those really small islands. Like you could probably traverse the whole thing in less than a day. And then you're trying to run from something that you may not even can see at first. And it's just this mixture of watching these kids break down and try their hardest to survive something they should never have had to survive. They should have never have been put through this. And the ending will probably piss a lot of people off who haven't read it. But I know on good authority that this was a good book because one of my favorite YouTubers, Gabby, she named her book club after this book. It's the Book Troop. The Troop. So yeah, I'm not the only one who really enjoyed this book, but I will say definitely read trigger warnings if you decide to pick this one up. Even for like animal stuff. I'm going to just put that. There's a few scenes in this book of animal stuff. Alright, Pen Pal. This one, I think made the rounds a few years ago because it's another one of those that started as a like Reddit no sleep story and it wound up getting compiled and like kind of reformatted and edited into a book. And I would say this is one of the better ones because this book is freaking creepy. The fact that it's non-linear and you're having to kind of, as you're reading, piece together the timeline, piece together what happened because you don't get told exactly what happened. All you know going into this, if you read the blurb, is that a small kid participated in a little like kindergarten project where they sent like little random letters out, I think with balloons. And the very worst kind of person finds this kids. The very worst kind of person. Because I don't think they ever really put a timeline, but I'm pretty sure it like takes place between like the early 2000s and like the 2010s, like in that time period. So, especially if it was in the early 2000s, people probably didn't realize how easy it is to find information on people with something even as simple as just knowing what school they go to. Because, like, these letters they sent off, it was like everyone was supposed to write back through the school. So, these kids weren't giving out their addresses. But yeah, this guy, he finds out where this kid lives. And can you imagine being stalked and terrorized for over a decade? And you don't even know what the stalker looks like. You've never seen them. And then literally it's almost like every good thing in your life gets taken away from you because of one person deciding to pick up a random piece of paper and deciding that they wanted to victimize a child. And you're getting all this through the child's perspective. And like I said, a non-linear format, so you kind of have to piece together what happened. Because what happens ultimately in the end is not just the ruination of one child. It's the ruination of multiple families. At least two. Who knows how many others that maybe weren't mentioned in the book. Because again, a relatively young narrator. But, I mean, he's an adult when he's telling the story. But, like, these are the recollections of a child. So yeah, like, there's even some things he doesn't know because he was never told. Like, he'll mention something, never elaborate on it, but then you'll read something later on that happens later on in the timeline, and you realize something, and you're like, oh, you gave us this situation through your child lens, but now with this additional context, I now understand it through my adult lens. And it's messed up. Read it. Number 7, The Haar. I also know that this one made the rounds because I know Sodergren is a like relatively indie horror author, but I know this one and I believe Maggie's Grave have really been making the rounds. I believe I also read another of his, The Night Shoot, but that's not on this list. It was good, but The Haar is really different. Because I've noticed recently an uptick in having older adults, like elderly adults, be like the protagonists of books more often, when you used to hardly ever see that, unless it was like books for older adults. But you're seeing it more in like more traditionally published works, works for younger viewers, and this one's no different. The horror features Muriel. I believe it's Muriel. Please don't flay me alive if I'm wrong. But she's like this 80-something-year-old Scotswoman. She's been widowed for several years. She lost her husband at sea because he was a sailor. And her small town is essentially being taken over by a big, pompous billionaire who wants to build golf courses. Who does that sound like? You'll find a lot of allusions in this that I'm not going to speak on right now, but you should read. And it's essentially about her struggling with the few neighbors she has left, because almost everyone has left this town already because they keep getting bought out so that this billionaire can destroy an ecosystem for a golf course in Scotland. And she discovers a creature, a blob, while walking along the coast. And this blob winds up being a secret tool that she uses later. Which, I shouldn't say that because it's sentient. It makes its own choices. But it winds up being a pretty major help with things toward the end. I don't want to like spoil too much because this one is really good. And it really takes a hard look at how consumerism and capitalism and like honestly a lot of a very Americanized ideals around like capitalistic pursuits are infecting other places. Because I'm pretty sure the billionaire in this book is American via origin. So that like makes it even more insulting because you've got Americans coming into your town, into your life, into your community when they know nothing about it. They know nothing about your history. They know nothing about your past. They don't care. And there's some funny moments in this book, admittedly, but it is definitely horror, and there's some body horror stuff, like type stuff in this. So keep that in mind. Some people may not agree with the ending. I think it ended the way it needed to. All right, number 6, My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I'm gonna say this. The main character of this book is a bitch. Like, straight up bitch. And she knows it. She is well aware of who she is, what she wants, and like what's going on in her life. It's set in 2001 in New York. Well, it starts in 2000, but it kind of goes into 2001. Which, I'm not going to say anything on that. You'd have to read it and see. It's not like a super relevant detail, but it's relevant enough. And essentially this girl who, quite frankly, has a very complicated relationship with her parents, particularly her mother. She's got everything she could want. I believe she has like a good cushy job. She has money. Her apartment's paid for. You know, she can pretty much buy, do whatever she wants. But she, quite frankly, is kind of empty and miserable. She's not a good friend. She's obsessed with a guy who doesn't really want her. And she doesn't really want him except when she wants attention. Her one friend is just honestly enough of a punching bag to take her repeated abuse over and over again. Like, very unlikable main character. But in a way, you pity her because could you imagine having everything in life that you want? The degree, the job, the money, to do pretty much whatever you want in New York City, and you're so miserable that you just want to sleep all the time. To the point of literally manipulating kind of a new age therapist or psychiatrist into giving you a bunch of really dopey sleepy pills so you can just essentially sleep a year away because you think that just sleeping all the time will fix you. And honestly, in the end, you don't really get anything conclusive. But what I got out of it is that no, a year of sleeping will not fix you. It won't fix your problems, and it won't fix you. And most people don't even get the option to try. Because most of us out here have to work and earn everything we have. And I know it was, like 25, 26 years ago now, and things were a little different. But even back in like 2000, 2001, New York was expensive, y'all. Everyone knows that. So yeah, I think you should read it. Not horror, another kind of sad girl lit fic. I got a thing for that. I'm sorry. All right, I remembered that I had this one with me this time, and this is number 5, Victorian Psycho. Which, this is not the edition I've read. I actually have not read this one yet. I got it from Aardvark, and it's signed. But yeah, I got it from Aardvark when I saw that they were like re-releasing it earlier, like for December. But I actually listened to it from the library on audio, and I had fun with this. Like, yes, it's obviously kind of like a callback to American Psycho, which, in my opinion, is one of the best books ever written. Not just horror, but just one of the best books ever written. But this one is Victorian Psycho is a lot more playful in my mind. Like, yes, the woman is unhinged. She's fucked up. It's set in Victorian England. I believe Victorian England. I know it's Victorian times. Like late 1800s, and like this woman is absolutely unhinged. But it's kind of fun, and to be real, you kind of don't feel super bad for the people who get theirs in the end, because everyone kind of sucks in this book. So it's not like this woman invades like a home and just takes over. Like, no, she gets a job as a governess, as a nanny. And slowly over time, you start to realize why she specifically wanted to be a governess for the family she's working for. And just mayhem and violence ensue. And the ending, while bleak, I thought was very fitting for what this book was. And I'm also just really happy to have a signed copy. I'm actually going to reread it in the coming year because I really enjoyed this book. All right, we're going on to number 4, Fantasticland. Probably yet another buzzword pick. This one, it tickles a part of my brain that really love, I'm probably going to butcher the word, but like epistolary novels. I really like mixed media format books. If I can get something that's written like a diary entry or has like interviews and newspaper clippings, and I love that. I eat that up. I wish more books were like that. This book is like that, except it's like interviews. It's like different like transcriptions or written reports of interviews after a disaster. There's a theme park, and this is all fictional, theme park in Florida called Fantasticland, comparable in the book to like Disney or Orlando, Universal. I honestly like brain blip right there. And this park is, they think they're far enough inland that when a huge hurricane's about to hit Florida, that they should be good. Like they evacuate all the people, like all the customers, but they keep a group of a few hundred employees, mostly really like older teens or young college students on the park to kind of just keep an eye on things, because they're not expecting to get hit as bad as like people closer to the coast. They just want to keep people on hand in case like something breaks and needs to be seen to prevent like, a fire, or to like keep people from trying to loot the park. But that's not what happens. That storm hits a lot harder than anybody expected. And the thing is, because of where it's at, Fantasticland is not very high up on the list of priorities when it comes to like FEMA and Red Cross trying to see if everyone's okay. They're assured they should have plenty of food. They have generators. They should be, no. Things go wrong almost from the freaking beginning. Like, even before they open the storm shelter to leave, things have gone wrong. Like, decisions have been made. And the whole point of the book is you're getting everyone's different perspective on, like, the same events. Like, it is linear enough, you're not just rehashing the same thing, but you'll get different perspectives. Like, people being like, yeah, this one kid who died, so-and-so did it, whereas you get an interview with so-and-so saying, I didn't want to hurt them, they attacked me first. That type of thing. And it's kind of up to you on who to believe. Because you also got to remember, you're only hearing the stories of the survivors. A few hundred people were in that park. Not that many left. Because, Lord of the Flies? Imagine that, but with adults in a theme park. And when I say things fall apart immediately, I'm talking like immediately. Like almost as soon as everybody leaves, they're forming tribes. And some of those tribes are really cool. And some of those tribes are like the fiends from Fallout. And if you play video games, you know what I'm talking about. But I could waffle on and on because I did genuinely enjoy this one. I did have some critiques, but I did genuinely enjoy it. This is another one I actually physically own, but I'm actually not quite sure where it is right this second. So, The Lamb by Lucy Rose. And I know this one made the rounds too. This one was a popular one this year. It's actually very rare for me to read so many popular books in like the same year they come out, and they're generally pretty popular. But this one I got, and like it made my heart break. Like, it's quite frankly, it's body horror, it's rage, it's cannibalism. Like, that is a big theme of the book, is cannibalism, but it is also just so incredibly sad because you're not following an adult through this. You're following this through a child, a very abused, lonely, isolated child whose mother is quite frankly batshit. And then another woman enters the picture, and you would think, well, there is no way there are two adults like this girl's mother. No, this woman's worse because things get exponentially worse for this child as soon as her mom gets a girlfriend. When her mom had boyfriends, that was one thing. But her mom getting a girlfriend, like, this takes the stereotype of U-Haul lesbians to a whole new extreme. Like, this woman moves in and essentially becomes the head of the family. And it's just, yeah, I mean, the book starts with the girl talking about finding fingers in the bathtub drain on her 4th birthday. If that tells you how the book goes, yeah. My only critique is I'm not sure I really liked how it ended, not because of what happens, but because of the very dramatic shift in tone. Because while everything that goes on in this book is horrific and nightmare fuel, it's all very grounded in reality. Because, like, these are very much things that could be happening somewhere. All of it is very tangible. And then it kind of takes it's like supernatural air at the end. Not completely, but like, if you've read it, you know what I mean. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I feel like the person who stumbles upon their little shack in the woods, it should have just been from their perspective versus the perspective we got. And I'm going to leave it at that. All right, another one I remembered to grab before sitting down to film. Play Nice. I honestly thought this one was going to be my favorite read of the year. And as you can see, it is number 2. It's actually one of the last books I got from Book of the Month before I canceled. Get into that another time. But Play Nice is, it's a haunted house book. You can tell from the cover. I'm sure everyone talked about this one at some point, but I genuinely love this one. I really did, because while I like, spooky, scary, ghosty goos or whatever, I think part of the real horror of this book is difficult family relationships. It's difficult relationships with a parent who's there, a parent who's estranged. I relate to it heavy because of the themes of a mother who wasn't quite right for that role. And yeah, it hits home for me, to be real with you. It really hits home because I understand what it's like to need to distance yourself from your mom for your own safety. Because what you find out through this novel is that while the mom wasn't crazy for thinking the house was haunted, the way she handled herself and her life, and like the things that are alluded to that happened even before they moved into the haunted house, it makes you realize, the mom had problems. But the thing is, the dad that's idolized in this, you realize he's human too. that there's always two sides to every story, and that when parents pit their children, like use their children to fight each other, all it does is damages the kids. Like there's three daughters in this. You follow Cleo, the youngest, and she seems like she has everything together, but the more time she spends in this house, the more the cracks appear. Not just within herself, but within her relationships with her sisters and her I mean, that her relationship with her mom was already very fractured, especially because it kind of starts with the mom dying and she hadn't seen her in a long time. But even then, like the relationship with the dad fractures because while he may seem like a great dude, is he a great dude or is he using acts of service as a bargaining chip? I honestly kind of want to do a deep dive on this, but I'm going to leave it there. Very emotional. Got some little spooky scares, but I think the more important part of Play Nice is the relationship exploration. It's the human part. The demon is just representative of what was already broken, or ghost, or whatever. And finally, my favorite book of this year. Drum roll, please. Ta-da! What Hunger? Oh my god, I cannot tell you how much I love this book. I literally devoured this book. Pun intended. Like this, oh my god. Okay. You calm down because I'm going to get too excited. So essentially, this book is a horror. I mean, tell you, it's a cannibal horror. It's also coming of age and female rage. Some of my very favorite things, but it's so down to earth. It's an immigrant family trying to make, a life here in the States. That there's a generation gap between the parents who grew up in Vietnam and who don't really speak English, and then they're very Americanized kids who were born in the US. And I believe this takes place in like Missouri too, so if that gives you any context. And the catalyst for everything that happens is the older brother dying. Him and the dad get in a fight. There's a physical conflict. The brother leaves, and on his way home is killed by a drunk driver. He's only 18. And it shatters his 14-year-old sister. It shatters his mother. It shatters his dad. And the sister, just trying to feel something, goes to a party. And then you can imagine what happens there. Because I hate to say it, when an inciting incident involves a girl at a party, you can almost always guess what happens. But that's just the beginning. Because her rage transfers into a craving to take a little piece of the people who've hurt her. And it's just following this young girl's journey. I'm sorry if I'm not using a lot of names. I tend to forget names. I can like look it up, but Ronnie. Yeah. Ronnie finds herself just struggling to deal with the blows that she's been given, her brother dying, what happened at the party, not feeling like she can connect with her parents because, like her mother is drowning in depression, locking herself in her room. Her dad is just, he's drinking and smoking and just kind of being a dick, trying to process his grief, especially because, he feels immense guilt because, like, his son, in his mind, wouldn't have been out if they hadn't gotten a fight. And then Ronnie's aunt comes to town. It's her father's sister, and with her being there, she didn't really like her at first. But with her aunt being there, she starts to realize that she doesn't have to define herself by what her parents want. She sees her aunt as like a pretty strong woman who takes no shit, does what she wants. And she also draws, things out of her dad, a side of her dad she hadn't seen. And then you learn, like, family history through this. And this book is just, honestly, like, yeah, there's cannibalism in it. But that is so aside from the real horror of grief, of compounded grief, of horrific events happening to you one after the other, especially when you're so young and you feel disconnected from everyone else, your friends, your family, just you. It's that time in life where things already freaking suck, like all the time. And then you throw all this on top of it. And then finding out a secret about your brother that he was too afraid to tell anyone, finding out secrets about your mom. Like that ending, oh my God, I really want to talk about that ending. I really need to do a spoiler blog on this because I really want to talk about the ending, but I'm trying to keep spoilers to like a minimum with this. So there you go. That is my top 25 reads of 2025. I'm going to reiterate, not all of these are 5 stars. Some of them I love to death, but I felt there was maybe something about them keeping it from being a perfect 5-star, but that doesn't mean I don't love it. Like, there are 5 stars I had this year that are not on this list. Because sometimes I believe a book may deserve 5 stars even if I didn't have the best time with it because of it being important or doing something so unique that it deserves some recognition of the hard work that went into it. So my ratings can be a little arbitrary. And blatantly taking this from yet another booktuber I like, Jan, I'm going to leave you with a little fun fact about books. Every year, between 500,000 and 1 million books are traditionally published. And Iceland publishes the largest amount of books per capita, on average 4.5 books per 1,000 people. Iceland also usually has the highest literacy rates of anywhere else in the world too. So that makes sense. Because a lot of time readers wind up being writers. And I don't know what's going on in Iceland. I assume y'all, a lot of y'all must have the free time. Something. Either way, I'd love to visit one day. Bye.